Welcome to the Grimm Reader. My name's Trevor Grimm. I will be hosting this YouTube channel for hopefully years to come. That is the goal here. I know you guys have been waiting for this a long time. No, they haven't. But I've been preparing for this for a whole 2 days now and am pumped to start the journey. And like I said, I hope this goes on for a time to come. I hope community is built here and we can just share our fascination with reading. But today we're going to jump into the 5 books that got me into reading. This has been a gradual thing going on since high school, and kind of just now within the last 2 years. So I feel like I've unlocked reader status. Hopefully that's where I sit today. My goal is to read 45 books this year on Goodreads, which seemed ambitious, but I'm already 16 books in. So I feel like I'm well under my way to get there. And throughout this channel, I'll be giving you my favorites, my least favorites, recommendations that I think everyone should read within the genres of fantasy and sci fi mainly. But also, we'll share a little bit about the business literature I'm reading, the self help books, the Christian literature, and obviously some of the classics as well, and diving into fiction here and there. So, we will be an all encompassing channel, and by we, I mean me. But you guys will be a part of that hopefully as the time goes on. And I'm pumped to share the 5 books that got me into reading. All right, so we're going to start with book one. And this one, like I said, goes back to those high school days. This is a classic that most of you have probably read or maybe seen the movie with none other than Leonardo DiCaprio. But this is The Great Gatsby. This is one of the Barnes and Noble copies that I got. I love the classic binding on it. But this is a story that I'm going to be spoiler free, but I assume most of you have read it. But it's a story about a young man named Nick Carraway who moves to Long Island during the Roaring Twenties, one of the most exciting periods in the history of America. And he becomes fascinated by his mysterious, wealthy, and party throwing neighbor Jay Gatsby, who's known for his extravagant parties on East Egg, looking out over towards West Egg on Long Island. As Nick gradually becomes drawn into this world of ambition, of wealth, of love, of illusion, of dreaming, and all of these things, he observes the people around them and how they are just fascinated by life, but to a degree where they're falling into those traps of wealth and identity and obsession in pursuit of the American dream and won't stop at anything until they get it. It reveals that things aren't always as perfect as they appear on the outside to one Nick Carraway. So it's a short, it's an atmospheric novel. Like I said, you probably read it in the high school days. This was the only high school read I remember loving. Other than also Frankenstein was one of the other few that I really enjoyed diving into. But this one, like I said, it's a novel that focuses on character, mood, meaning, and it's just a fascinating writing piece by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and one that everyone at some point in their life should read. The second one will come to no surprise to anyone that knows me at all. I guess I should give some backstory. I am a giant moviegoer and movie watcher. That was kind of my original love when it came to falling in love with the arts. But like I said, coming here to reading now, you cannot not talk about the Fellowship of the Ring. When you're talking about epic fantasy, Tolkien is going to be at the top of that list more often than not, and rightfully so. But this book was really the beginning of it all. When I said I got back into it within the last 2 years, January of last year, I binged through this book. And I know that's probably horrible to say that it took me until last year to read it, but that is the truth of the matter. Again, a spoiler free summary: Fellowship of the Ring is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. Follows a quiet hobbit named Frodo Baggins, who lives in the peaceful Shire amongst his friends there, but quickly gets tasked with a journey of a ring that is more dangerous than anyone really knows that it is to be, and begins on this journey with the Fellowship of the Ring, his group of companions. Made up of a bunch of different races. You got the elves and the dwarves and other hobbits and men and wizards even involved there as well, as they go on this journey through Middle Earth. Like I said, they run into more obstacles than not, and that is the fascination with this book. And it's such a good building block for the Two Towers and Return of the King to Come. And if you're interested, there's obviously The Hobbit and The Silmarillion and so many other unfinished tales within there as well, that are worth the read. But this is kind of where I got off the ground running, and I've never looked back from the fantasy genre since then. Another one that is no surprise to anyone who knows me at all. Again, there's a common theme here with movies, but it is Dune by Frank Herbert. Again, this is the first book in a 6 book series that was eventually taken over by Frank Herbert's son. But these so far are the ones that I have read, and this one I got into right last March, I believe, March 2025, and again, just absolutely loved it. If you've seen the movies, it's a pretty good adaptation of what this is. But it follows a boy named Paul Atreides, who's a young noble coming from Caladan to the planet of Arrakis, which is this desert planet where the only source of any kind of economy that they have is the spice that is found in the sand in these dunes on Arrakis. As there's political betrayal, there's dangerous environments, and there's powerful forces that are closing in great houses. Paul is forced to align with one side or the other and find his strengths and his weaknesses and how he's going to approach these positions of power as a young nobleman. He becomes deeply connected to the planet and the people involved there, and it creates this fascinating story that involves action and romance, power, survival, destiny, and just what it means to lead well or not so well. That is for you to figure out as you approach these books. Next on our list of the five books that got me into reading is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. This is the first book in the Lycanius trilogy, as you can see here, and it is a bit of a honker, and the other two are as well. But don't let that scare you. This is epic fantasy of the most modern degree, and I absolutely loved it. This was recommended to me by a friend, and I was a bit scared of it last summer, but started it this year and read through the whole trilogy in maybe 2 weeks. It's a lot to consume, but it is one of the easiest reads that I've ever come across. I'm absolutely fascinated by it, and I've recommended it to everyone I've talked to since then. So obviously, I'm going to recommend it to you as well. But like I said, it's by James Islington. It's the first book in this trilogy. You're probably seeing a common theme here where I love world building and I love the first books in different series and trilogies. But this follows a young student named Davian who lives in a world where people with magic are feared, they're controlled, they're hunted, because no one really knows what they're capable of. And there's also a pretty devastating past that no one's really been able to get over. So when Davian begins to discover the dangerous truths around the magical abilities that he has, he's pulled into a much larger, expansive conflict involving ancient enemies, forgotten history, and the possibility that the past is never as settled as everyone believes. And it is time travel, and it covers, I mean, I think it's about 1,000 years, and it's not hard to follow at all. It is some of the best writing that I've seen to date. It's an epic fantasy at its heart. It's about destiny, it's about friendship, it's about secrets, and just how the choices of the past of people even before you can shape the future and where you're at in the present time. Again, just a beautiful read. It's a Christian Australian author, James Islington, and he incorporates these themes of destiny and fate and a lot of Christian themes within predestination and the role that that plays as well. All is to say, this book is beautiful. You should read it. Also, the cover art is awesome. One of my favorite books that I do own, and really got me into it at the beginning of this year and kind of solidified my love for fantasy as a genre as a whole, and led right into the next book that we're going to cover as well. Last but not least, Mistborn. This has taken the world by storm, as has Brandon Sanderson and his Cosmere as a whole, and I'm just now getting into it. I have read at this point the Mistborn trilogy and Elantris and a few of the short stories and novellas as well, and I am captivated by Brandon Sanderson's writing, but we'll get to that further on with the channel. Um, like I said, this is the fifth book that got me into reading. At this point, I am fully sucked in. I just finished this trilogy probably 2 weeks ago at this point. And again, just fascinated by the world of epic fantasy and the writing style of Sanderson. It is whimsical, but it is fun. It is not YA. It's got great action. It's got insane magic systems, insane characters, and some of my favorite ones that I cannot wait for the Apple TV adaptations to come in the future. I hope they don't botch them because this would be one of the best movies, I think, in the world. Um, like I said, this is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. It is now referred to as Final Empire, and it follows a dark world where that's ruled for 1,000 years by someone named the Lord Ruler. Very creative, I'm well aware. But the book itself, the main character follows Vin, who's a street thief who uses her abilities of luck, and she discovers that it's more than just luck, it's actually a magical ability that's pretty rare. And she gets recruited by this mysterious crew that's planning this impossible takedown of an empire that has never been overthrown before, hence the Lord Ruler. But what I found so cool about this is it almost feels like a getting the band back together. If you've seen the movie Ocean's 11, kind of putting together a crew for this insane heist that no one thinks is even possible. And it's a fast paced fantasy where you just dive straight into that world. For being the first book, a lot happens, and I loved that. There is great world building, but there's just as much action and things going on that I thought was fascinating. It's a place about rebellion, it's about trust, discovering your strength in a world where there's really no hope. It's covered in ash and mist and darkness, and these wealthy elite who kind of control everything. All to say, it's an awesome read. You should read it because it will throw you for a loop time after time again. Every time I thought I had it figured out in this first book, I did not. And it kind of does stand pretty well as a standalone. It can hold up on its own. But gosh, if you can read The Well of Ascension and The Hero of Ages too, you are in for a treat. And like I said, you will never be able to predict what is going to happen there at the end. And it is just beautiful writing. So there you have it. There's the 5 books that got me into reading, as you can see here. And this is in no particular order. I mean, obviously, The Great Gatsby is what I read first. Like I said, that was back in high school. But all of these will stand the test of time. I am confident to say that Dune, Fellowship of the Ring, Great Gatsby already have. But I have no doubt these two as well. Like I said, this one is kind of not as well known. Still, a very popular author with his Will of the Many and Strength of the Few hierarchy trilogy that he is working on right now. But gosh, dive into all these if you can. I recognize all of them are a little bit big, but the great thing about reading after college is there is no timeline. You can take as long as you want. Take your time with these books. Enjoy them for what they are. They are incredible. But yeah, as this channel goes forward, we'll dive into, like I said, more often than not, sci-fi and fantasy. But we will throw in the classics as well, like The Great Gatsby. That is a pivotal part in my reading journey. And yeah, I'm pumped for this channel. I hope you guys are too. I'm new to this, but we're going to have a great time while we're doing it. You can expect a video probably once a week, maybe a little bit more here and there when I have the time to do it. But thank you guys for watching. If you've watched this far, please like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video. Enjoy.